Hey guys, and welcome back to another YouTube video. In this video I'll be going through and doing a player comparison of Josh Rachele and Connor Macdonald, as this is probably one alongside the likes of Liam Baker, but we'll leave him out of there. Zach Fisher, well, he sort of is the same price point but different role, I guess. These two have a very awfully similar price range, are also given pretty much the same role, or at least are hunting for that same role, and are both, well, one's 649 and one is also 638, so they're within 11k of each other, which is like 1.2 points. They almost have the same break even, and they're basically looking for that, well, at least Macdonald is looking for that wing CBA role, and Rachele is looking for that half forward CBA role. So they're both looking for what, in my opinion, will be that 30 or 40% CBA role at least. I think Macdonald can do a little bit more damage with less CBAs, but I think Rachele is more that guy that needs that 30-40% CBA role. And so it's dependent on Crouch, obviously, but I think they're both hunting that more midfield time role at that same sort of price range for the forwards, whereas you've got Baker and Fisher that are looking for a little bit different roles to them, even though they're the same price point, which is almost a totally different thing. Baker and Adams are more of a comparison, in my opinion, than Baker and also the likes of Rachele and Macdonald, but this review will be Rachele and Macdonald based, going through a third-year breakout, same draft class, obviously slightly different picks ranges, but same draft class, third year. Can they make that big breakout that we sort of expect? As it seems like this year, a lot of players have been hunting that second year breakout players, but I think the third year breakout players could be the interesting ones to hunt. But anyway, before we get into this video, remember to like and subscribe, turn the notification bell on so you know when I upload, and let's get into the video. So as you can see here, we have the CBA rotation up for Adelaide in 2023. You can see here that if we look at it here, Josh Rachele, 23%. So he already got CBAs, but if you look here, they were mostly in the first half of the season, with only 16 and 17, him having significant enough CBAs. So only really had CBAs in the first 6 rounds alongside 16 and 17. If we go to player summary here, and then we look at the first 6 rounds, 16 and 17, I think you will see something awfully similar. 16 and 17. He averages 88.5 on what is roughly, I would say, that 45% CBA role, even with an slightly injured game in there. Including a 59 game. Obviously, one of them was against North Melbourne, but he did have the harder matchups against Carlton, Port Adelaide, as well as a tough matchup to score. These are all relatively tough matchups to score, and the only real game outside of it that he didn't have CBAs and he scored was this West Coast game alongside this St Kilda game as well. Other than that, but that 100 was the I was just looking for it, and that 100 was the 50% CBA game. So these were the only 2 games that he actually scored. And if you think about it, these two were some of the weaker teams to score against. Obviously, West Coast, he kicked, he put up 3 goals, 1, which sort of helps the cause, as well as he got basically a ton off only 18 touches, which is pretty rare to do. And then we scroll back here, and the main reason we need to actually talk about Rachele is his mention in one of his media days that he was going to have a 50-50 split in the midfield. I don't necessarily see that coming to fruition, as they do have Crouch, Laird and Dawson. Laird and Dawson role won't change. Crouch, I believe, if we look back at the CBAs, you'll see here, took up the major mid-roll, that third major mid-roll in the last couple of rounds here. You'll see that in doing so, yes, they have Schoenberg there as well. Is Harry Schoenberg a ruckman or whatnot? I'm not 100% certain on that, which is probably a bad look. Let's just check. Harry Schoenberg, no, he wouldn't be a ruckman. Okay, so he's just an inside mid, 22 years old. That's bad oversight by me. I'm trying to figure out who was Rory Laird's sort of guy that they went to Thilthorpe, I'm guessing, and then I don't know who else they would have gone to in the ruck. Gallant maybe they would have gone to. That sort of adds up their percentages wise. But anyway, so yes, they used Harry Schoenberg a little bit in the ruck. I don't know, not in the ruck, in the actual midfield. That's bad of me again. So I don't know whether he will necessarily be the fourth midfielder that they're hunting, or whether this time here that we see, which is probably roughly 30%, can also get parachuted to Rachele here, and you see that sort of ends up being around 40%. You've also got Rory Sloane, who I think has an eye injury or whatever, so he may be there, maybe not. I'm not 100% sure with that as well, which is time that could be given to Rachele. You've also got Ben Keys there as the fourth guy as potential as well, but I think he'll be used up forward as well. And then you've got the likes of Pedler, who is used a little bit in the midfield, who we expect to be that... I personally expect Keys and Pedler to be the fourth and fifth highest guys next year that actually play a decent amount, because you've got obviously Sam Berry, you've got Haitley, who's played a little bit, and Schoenberg as well from last year, that played a little portions of the season, but I don't expect them to be there. I expect it to be Laird, probably actually Dawson, Laird, Crouch, to be honest with you, and then Rachele and also Pedler there as the fourth and fifth guys. So I do expect Rachele to get an increase. Whether that is to the 40%, that would be a killer pick. I don't know, but I think it will be that 30 to 35%, which, as we've shown in this sort of segment here, Rachele on 35%, say we just pick the 1, 2, 4 and 17 games from Rachele, 1, 2, 4 and 17, it's still 83 average plus 12. It almost will be a top 6 forward, I guess. So I think he's there or thereabouts. I'm just wondering, is he going to be a better pick over potentially Macdonald, if Macdonald gets that half forward and on-ball role, similar to what we saw with Flanders at the last part of last year. If we look at the CBAs for Hawthorn, you'll see that Macdonald, 3%, has been used in the CBAs for rounds 10 and maybe rounds 1, if you want to refer to the 10% there. And if we look at Macdonald here, 2023 round 1 and round 10 here, you can see 81.5, and that was in a vest game that he went 74 fantasy points in 41% time on ground. I don't know exactly if that was an inside mid that came off that made him go in there, but he's shown that he can score in the middle. 9 tackles in that game is an absolutely huge amount, and that would be a career high. But the main thing I like about Macdonald, as well as Rachele, sort of the same thing, is if we actually go to, obviously, NAB League, they had a small segment in 2021, but you can see in that small segment, Rachele averaged 99. He did kick a lot of goals in that, which can be discounted a little bit, but then you've got Macdonald here, who's played 4 games here as well, kicked only 3 goals, 7 in that, so less scoring dependent, but he averaged 1-2-1 in 4 games. Yes, a small sample size, but we've also seen him do it in the VFL as well, a couple games in the VFL as well. So in games that are sort of in the 2s or around that level of play, you've seen him go 115 in 6 games and basically put up hundreds. Obviously, these roles are slightly different, with 29 touches in that game, as well as 20 in the VFL in that game, and huge numbers, 20, 24, 25, 33 and 37 touches respectively in all those games. But you've seen he has he has the potential to have a big non-disposal count as well, points wise. You see in this game here in round 3 of the NAB in 2021, he put up 10 marks, which is 30 points, and 48 tackle points worth in 12 tackles. So that's 78 non-disposal points, which is huge, and he is hitting that 8 tackle and mark counter quite a lot in the NAB, and then in the VFL he was also he did it in 1 out of the 2 games. In the other game he got up to 7 in 5 and 2 respective marks and tackles, so he does have the scope there. I think the big thing for me here that we can see is, if I actually move my camera to the other side, is actually just the heat map of Macdonald and the reason why his scoring increased. As you can see here, if we look at the first part of 2023, or just in general the sort of his games where he has limited amount of time up forward, you'll see here, this is probably not going to back my claim, as he's had quite a couple shockers on the front here, but 73 in 10 games, and if you look at the back half of that, when he was playing consistently more on a wing, it's probably not even going to back the claim up. 79 in 6 games. You've also got this game he had a shocker against Gold Coast. But yeah, so he's going a little bit better when he's on the wing comparison to when he's not on the wing. If you look at these games here, 59 in 5 games here, as well as just including these games as well here. He's 61 in 8 games when he is on that sort of half forward flank-ish role and sort of not getting up and about in the contest. I think if we look at this 91 here, I just want to see where he was parked most of the time. You can see this sort of deep inside forward 50, a lot of his possessions. Whereas if we look at this 104 to end the season on a wing, you will see it's a lot more obviously concentrated on the wing, but in the back half. And that's where I think, especially with Hawthorn, with CJ going down and stuff like that, as well as we have Dylan, they have a lot of injuries at the moment. It will be interesting to see the role that he gets, but I think there is definitely a chance for him to have an increased role just because of the injuries that have gone down. You've got CJ, Dylan Moore, Will Day, blank doesn't really matter to him, and also someone else went down as well, that I don't know if it will have too much. I forgot who it was, but there was definitely 4 or 5 guys that have got shot. Seamus Mitchell, who's best 22 at a touch, I think. So there's a lot of wingmen and sort of half forwards that have gone down. So I think there is an increased role for Macdonald, but I don't know whether it's definitely an increased role for him or just someone else comes into the side like a Ward or a Mackenzie, and that sort of squanders the role a little bit for Macdonald. So that is the main point. But I do think that there is natural progression there for Macdonald. And I think those NAB days he has shown that he can definitely score quite heavily. I just think this could definitely be the year that he just gets that increased roll off half forward and into the centre or onto the wing. And I think he just needs to increase those floor games. I mean, we saw in the last 5 weeks of the season, he had a better role and he went 86.6. If you include that last game there, that 41 where he had a shocker against Richmond, it goes down to a 79. But you can just see here that basically every game that he was not in, every game that he was included on the, I guess, interchange or the wing, interchange, these games as well, and that would be that. He averaged 75, but if you take out these first couple games, obviously, and more so just looking at the back half of the season, because there definitely was a role change in that back half of the season. Even if you just start adding all of this sort of back half here, you can see last 11 games, he went at 78. Yes, a lot of people will say, why are you doing that? Why are you looking at that? But I think that definitely, especially in this last 5 games, was definitely a role change here. Last 6 games included, but he did have a bad game in that round 19 game. But you can still see this 79 average is plus 8 or 9 on his average as well. And then if you were to be a little bit cheeky and take that out, it goes up to 86 in 5 games. Yes, generally you shouldn't be taking out this 41, which would still be plus 8. So there's still plus 8, and I think there is a general consensus that he is, if he gets the role, probably going to be a top 6 guy. Top 6 is probably going to be, I would lean towards, if we look at the forwards and then go by average, is probably top 6 going to be, I would say, 80, 85 or so, 86. And I think Macdonald can hit that marker at this point in time. So I think there is genuine warrant to select Macdonald. I just don't know whether at this moment, I'm sort of torn 50-50 on whether to go Rachele or to go Macdonald. We don't get a look at them at round 0, which is the best look to see these guys. But we do get the pre-season game. Warranted, they could come up against easy opposition. I don't know who they're both playing, as I haven't really looked into the pre-season games as much. But I genuinely think that one of these two will probably start in my side at this point in time, as I do think they are definitely value plays. And all you need out of them, like we were saying with yesterday with Elliot Yeo, is about 6 weeks. And if we look at Macdonald at the moment, I think he's going to be one that's around that. Macdonald 5%, and Rachele is going to be, I think, around 5% as well. He's at 3.9. I expect both of them to probably start the season around about that 10 or so percent marker, as round 0 will probably drop a couple of the forwards there. And I genuinely think that one of those two will be the one of the guys in the forward line to spike, as there is going to be a breakout somewhere, third-year breakout out of somewhere. I genuinely don't think it's going to be all of Jimby, Wardlaw, etc. That breakout. I think there will be a third-year breakout, and I think it does come in the forward line in the case of Macdonald and or Rachele. If I was to pick one of them, I probably would pick Macdonald over Rachele, just because Rachele can have such floor games, whereas Macdonald, I don't. Yes, Macdonald does have the 41, the 39 here, etc. But if you look at it adjusted wise, he's already 73. If you look at the other games, he's already a 79 in those last 6, and an 86 in the last 5. And you look at, he's also had a couple of sub games as well. Obviously, this 74 was a really good sub game against West Coast. Hawthorn should have the easier fixture, I would say. But I need to double check that quickly. If I go Macdonald, who do they have in their doubles? They've got North twice, West Coast they only play once, and they got Richmond twice, which is a good matchup. And I don't know who else. And then we go to Rachele here, and we just check Rachele's fixture. I'm also looking at they have, where is North? It looks like they only have North and West Coast once here, doing a quick overview of that. So I mean, it's West Coast and North, and in the first 6, you'll really, potentially, these guys are only actually sort of cash grabs. And if you look at that fixture, first 6 games, I don't really mind it as much for Rachele, but I think Macdonald here, looking quickly, has a better first. I would say they have a generally the same-ish first 6 games. But if it was a keeper, I would just put in front Macdonald over a Rachele, to be honest with you, as what's Rachele's buy as well. Rachele they both have the same buy as well, so that doesn't matter as well. I would just put Macdonald in front of Rachele due to junior scoring, and Macdonald doesn't need the goals to prop up his scoring as much as Rachele. Yes, Rachele might have the better role in terms of CBA percentage, but I think that Macdonald can impact around the ground a lot more, and I do think Hawthorn will have a slower style than Adelaide will, and so I think that will also impact in terms of the marks taken and the +6s that the likes of a Macdonald can take. And we see here, even with Rachele here, obviously that was a best game, but you see here the amount of games he's had where he's really had floor games below, let's just say below 60. He's had 6 games, whereas the likes of Macdonald has had, where is it here? There we go. That's all the games. He's had 5 games as well below 60. So yes, a little bit less. Let's just see, 21 games, and then also Rachele played 21. So he has a little bit better floor, I'd say, Macdonald, and I think he has a genuine better ceiling than the likes of Rachele. So that's why I would pick Macdonald, but it is so close, and I wouldn't say no to people saying Rachele, because they may see that he has that increased role. I just think Macdonald, if he gets that wing CBA role that we're seeing, maybe James Jordan get. I don't think it will be to the extreme of the CBA extreme that Goulden will get at Sydney, but I think you can genuinely see James Jordan and Macdonald have a similar role. And I think they could produce. I think Macdonald would produce better numbers just because he is a more behind the play, more non-disposal than James Jordan. But I think that they both do really well in that wing 20% CBA role that if they can get it. But I also think that Macdonald could score in that half-forward CBA role that he gets. That sort of affect Sam Flanders we've seen before do. Whereas I don't think Rachele will score as much. I know that he has had an increase, mostly due to a little bit more tackling, but we saw he is a lot more role dependent, whereas I think Macdonald is a little bit less role dependent, getting those CBAs and stuff. So I think there is a lot less limited downside with Macdonald, maybe a little bit more limited upside, because Rachele could be a 95 guy if he gets that role, whereas Macdonald maybe more so that 90 guy. But I think that Macdonald is a little bit of the safer pick and if he could be a 100 guy if he gets that massive 40% role. But I think he's more generally going to be that 20% role that he gets that 90, which will be top 6. Whereas I don't see Rachele necessarily with the Crouch, Laird, Dawson midfield getting that 40% CBA role that he really needs to get that sort of 90-95 that he was averaging at the first part of last season. But I guess we'll wait and see these preseason games. I know I've gone on another 20 odd minutes just basically saying that I think Macdonald is a slightly better pick, but these two are pretty close. I wouldn't be surprised if they both start 8 or 9% owned and be really close to each other. And you could pretty much jump ship. That's the good thing with these two. They shouldn't fall too far apart, that you can pretty much jump ship after 1 or 2 games, I would expect, to the other guy, to the better scorer or the better role dependent guy. So I think that one of these two will be the guy that breaks out. It will just be, obviously, for the guys that pick him, pick the right one, I think they'll be better off by maybe 60 points and about 30-40k. But the other guys shouldn't. You just be ready to jump on the other guy if it is Rachele, if I'm wrong with it being Rachele. But if it's Macdonald, then I'll be probably happy, as Macdonald will probably start in my side at, I would say, F3 at the moment. But anyway, that is the video, and I'll see you guys in the next video, I guess. Thanks, guys. Goodbye.